From One of One Production Studio, located in Fort Lee, New Jersey, this is The Art of Music Tech. And now, here's your host, Fela and Dennis.
Let's go, and welcome to the Art of Music Tech NAMM edition, Summer NAMM in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm here with the owner of Artist Relations, Randy Fuchs, a very dear friend of ours since we started 23dB, and now we're into One of One Productions as well. Big fan of the show and how we got into reviewing and knowing what's the next technology coming up is from this guy, Randy. So thank you for finally getting on the show.
Well, thank you so much for that actually wonderfully nice introduction.
Oh, yes. I've known you for, wow. A good friend of ours, Quiz, introduced me to you about 8-9 years ago. And at AES, well, yeah, pretty early on. So,
for those of you who don't know who Quiz is, Quiz has worked with a lot of huge artists. So the last one he's been working with before the pandemic shut everything down was Beyonce. Mm-hmm. And last time I saw him probably was Beyonce tour. What they did, which was really cool, they had this. Normally, when you have an engineer, they go set up on site. And I think we were there for the very first show, which was in Miami. Uh-huh. And they had a truck that pulled in, and they built the monitoring station for the tour in the truck itself, which is the coolest thing I've ever seen for something like that. Because normally when they do it, it takes all these hours to set up. But what they did here by doing it on the truck, they had 3 different stations on there, so you just roll into the venue, take the cables out, plug them in, and they're all set and they're ready to go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Again, cutting edge technology-wise, Quiz is always with it. I think
ahead of the game.
Ahead of the game. I mean, she's pretty much the ultimate right now in anything of new technology coming in for a higher end artist. How did you start Artist Relations? Let's get into that.
It's a convoluted story. So at one time I was what I would like to believe was a professional musician. And so I worked in, as a kid, I worked in different music stores. I worked for Buddy's Music Center on Quentin Road in Brooklyn, which is no longer there. And then I worked for Sam Ash Music. I worked for Plush Amplifiers, which was an amplifier manufacturer, and I learned a lot of stuff there. I did an all-night session and wound up at my drummer's house, and my drummer basically had to go somewhere and said, "Can you do me a favor? I'm interviewing for a job, and can you wait here?" So the guy came into the house while my friend Ted was out, and we wound up talking, and then he decided he wanted to hire both of us. And so I started working for a company called New Breeders Associates as a sales rep in the music industry, and quickly rose to being his best guy. And that opened a whole bunch of doors for me. And at the time, my wife was quite ill, and she wanted to be in Florida near her family. And subsequently, unfortunately, she passed away. And I started my own sales rep firm in Florida, doing exactly what I did in New York, which is basically calling on different music stores with gear. And I noticed that a lot of the companies would have engineers in adverts talking about product, but not musicians. And so I took a cue from what I saw in the consumer world and reached out to a bunch of well-known musicians I knew, because I worked with a lot of these guys in other capacities. And I started doing artist relations while I was a sales rep in the music industry. And so in that capacity, with different brands, we did different things. So with Digitech, we worked closely with Yngwie Malmsteen and Eric Clapton and Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and, some
well-known guitarists.
nobody was a slouch, some really well-known musicians. And then we did similar things with other brands in other capacities that we worked with. So we worked with Mackie, and what Mackie had us do before they were going public is we wound up doing some video interviews with a bunch of well-known engineers and producers and people like that too, so that this way they would have sizzle to help sell the steak. So we started doing more and more endorsements with different brands. At that time, we were working for Audio-Technica. Actually, we were the very first Audio-Technica rep in the world, in the pro industry. Before that, they had consumer reps. And the consumer reps were selling things like phono cartridges and microphones to hi-fi shops. And I called them and I said, come, I want to do this. So I was the experiment to see if that worked, and we brought them some great artists. So we brought them like Laurie Estefan, and we did work there with Journey, and we brought them some of the guys from Pink Floyd, Scott Page, who we're still good close friends with, and some other bands too, and engineers like Phil Ramone. And so some really great, well-known people. And eventually, I liked doing artist relations more than being a sales rep. So I sold my rep firm to a great guy named John Saviano, who has his own rep firm company, which is Quest. He does Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, North and South Carolina, and Tennessee. And he's grown the company tremendously. I consulted with him for 2 years, and then I went into artist relations full time. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, how I started artistrelations.com.
I can see that.
And among that time, too, we also had a recording studio in Atlanta, because my rep firm was Crescendo Associates, and that was called Crescendo Recorders. It was at 125 Simpson Street, downtown. And before that, it was called the Sound Pit. And there were some great artists that recorded there. We dealt with everyone from Isaac Hayes to Kansas to Sly Stone. A lot of great bands. And we had, one of the years that we were there, the NAMM show was in Atlanta. And so Isaac Hayes wanted to get to the show. He borrowed my badge because they didn't check ID back then. And then after the show, he came to me. I can't do his voice the way, but it was like, Randy, I can't believe how many damn people know you. So that was a kick in the thrill.
From the Black Moses. That's awesome. Oh, wow. So how long has Artist Relations been around then?
So artistrelations.com has been around since, well, I guess it's been about 20 years.
20, all right.
Yes.
Nice.
Congrats.
Yeah, I mean, how has the whole social media, so when that came in, did you know, like, oh, this is the next wave, or were you early to it as far as, I mean, that's all we do for you is kind of create content, like
early,
you guys.
We were early internet and social media adopters.
Okay.
So that's why I was able to get the domain artistrelations.com.
Okay, yeah, okay. That's true. That's a very...
Our Instagram handle is Artist Relations. Our Twitter handle is Artist Relations. Our TikTok is Artist Relations. So they're all Artist Relations except for one, and that's Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
Facebook, we're Artist Relation. No S at the end of it. But everything else is Artist Relations.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the business of how to get it out there. Getting brands out there nowadays is like, it's mostly digital.
So the question you asked, which I sort of answered but didn't, so I'll get back, I will answer it now. So things have changed dramatically. So when I first started doing artist relations for companies, my job was to find them great artist or sideman, and the company would then, we would arrange a quote, the company would then get a photo, and they would put him in one of the music magazines, like say Mix magazine. By the way, my recording studio was on the cover of Mix magazine, which we really loved.
Nice.
But anyway, they would put him in a magazine, and people would get to see it, and a sideman would then become well known because of the band he was associated with, because it was in all the publicity for the brands. As times changed, ad revenue shrank, magazine sizes shrank, and the companies then need us to do more because their budget shrank with it. So we started doing artist relations, and then we started doing artist relations in photography. So then we switched from, we started off with Nikon, then went to Canon, now we're with Sony. And we don't work for Sony, but I happen to love my Sony A7S III camera. Anyway, getting off the subject. So we did that, and then we started shooting video, and then we started editing video, and then companies asked us to help writing some press releases. And so we started doing just everything needed to help the company's business grow based upon the foundation of artist relations. Because really the whole function of artist relations, if you distill it down to its purest essence, is working to increase the sales and knowledge about a brand. And so all these other things had to come into play to make that happen. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, actually. I mean, the brands was introduced through you, all the cable company. I mean, Lewitt microphones.
Which we're talking through right now.
They grew tremendously, I think.
Well, Lewitt is actually, we have some great artists and people using Lewitt. So we can find Lewitt microphones on, from what a lot of our engineers and producers told us, from everyone from Ariana Grande to Beyonce with Kelly Rowland, the One Direction records, a lot of the One Direction guys separately, a lot of big artists have recorded and used Lewitt.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, so they have grown tremendously, and we like to believe, and hopefully it's correct, that we were a part of that.
Yes, 1000%.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. How do you find these niche brands? Because a lot of these brands are young and up and coming. How do you keep your finger on the pulse of what's coming next, for basically?
Well, what I like to do when we go to the shows, I like to walk around and see what I think is wonderful, new, and interesting. Or when I read an article on something, or I'll see something that someone's using and I'll ask questions about it. And when we take on a brand, we only want to take on a brand that we love. So normally when we start with the company, we have a little feeling out period. And if we wind up loving the product and really caring for the people there, because it's almost like being in a band. So a band could make great music together, but if the lead singer and the bass player are getting in fights all the time, the band's not going to last. So if we find a brand where we can respect and like the people that are there and like the product or love the product and feel that the product is going to be something that people will really sink their teeth into, then we're proud and honored to work with those brands. And the companies we work for are like that. So like we love, like IK Multimedia.
Yes.
We do too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, they have great software. You know, their Amplitude 5 is like an amazing guitar plugin. So, and they also have, in Amplitude, you can also buy like the Joe Satriani plugin. You can get the Hendrix plugin. You can get the Slash plugin,
Yeah.
Brian May, and we actually were involved in 2 of those. So with the Hendrix plugin, we were working with Sheldon Reynolds from Earth, Wind and Fire. He was the guitar player at the time. And at the time, he was married to Janie Hendrix, which is Jimmy's little sister. So he introduced me to Janie, and we spoke about working together to do this Hendrix plugin. And that was how that started. Now, here's the thing that's cool about how IK does their plugins. One would think that maybe there's some kid in the corner with headphones listening to Foxy Lady and trying to figure out exactly how to make that sound in a plugin. That's not how IK does it. They actually, I was at their office, and they had all this original gear, the original models that Jimi Hendrix used. And they found a way to measure and model and test things out so that this way it sounds like the amp. So if you took those old amps that Jimmy had and set all the dials to 0 and set these dials to 0, they would sound the same. So you can get the sounds that not just he had, but the sounds he would have had he adjusted the tone controls differently. And so I'm sure it's the same thing. And then with the Slash one is if I remember correctly, it was me, Gary Kersner, and the manager for Slash. We went to, I think, a lunch and set that up, and that's how all that started.
Oh, nice.
And they've taken that to the next level, and then they have other great products like that too. They have, and now they have hardware that they came out with, which is like next level stuff. I don't want this to sound like an ad, but I can't help it because I love this. I love this stuff.
This is why we set it up. So you get very cutting edge companies that are just doing next level things, and that's why we love working with you guys, because you're bringing us on to stuff that actually does matter for us too. It's not just new gear. Da, da, da. It's like, no, it moves our business,
makes difference
forward.
Too.
Yeah, and recently we also started working with Gator. So it's Gator cases, Gator frameworks, and they also do Levi's straps too. But we arranged for Richard Fordish from Guns N' Roses to get a Gator case. So. And the thing that's cool about it is it's a lightweight TSA-approved case, but I was talking with Richard on the phone, and he said to me, I bought a new guitar, I bought a new Les Paul that's the same cost of a house. So I thought he was exaggerating. So I said, well, how much did the guitar cost? He said $300,000. So I said, wow. Not only is that, it must be an amazing Les Paul, but if he's trusting it to a Gator case, that's a big message about the quality of Gator cases too.
Yeah.
So, and of course we work for Fur Audio. They have great in-ear monitors, and it's actually people from other in-ear monitor companies we used to work for. And so Bogdan, who's like designs just about everything there, is like this brilliant guy.
Yeah, we interviewed him at your Endorse Expo a few days ago as well. We were putting that all in a podcast. So
even though you're interviewing me, I'm going to ask you some questions now. What did you think of the Endorse Expo, guys?
Oh, we loved it. That's every time we come to a NAMM, we've hit that with a NAMM, the Endorse Expo.
2 days before NAMM. Always.
So now you've been at about, 5 Endorse Expos?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe more than that.
Yeah.
So what are some of the highlights of the Endorse Expo for you?
Oh, wow. OWC definitely with their hard drive, the new hard drive, that Envoy, I believe that's waterproof.
The Envoy Pro Electron.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that was exciting. Fur, excited to see what's coming up.
Even throughout the years, you had a lot of guitar companies that I loved, cable companies that we were introduced to. We still use them to this day, actually now using them.
Yeah.
Throughout the years, all Endorse Expo were amazing, and I mean, especially this year with.
So what people at the Endorse Expo, besides the brands, what artists did you enjoy meeting with at the Endorse Expo?
Oh, wow. We always love seeing Vernon Reed. You see him in a lot of them.
That's the guitar player from Living Colour.
Living Colour, yeah. And he lives out near us too, well, out in New York, in Staten Island. Yeah. Man, it's so many people. Brian Vieberts, we ended up meeting, who was now a 6-time Grammy Award winner. Maybe. Yeah, I think, he won.
He uses a lot of your products too.
Yeah, he...
a wonderful guy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's now just a friend of ours that we met through you years ago. I mean, it's so many... Now I'm on the spot. I'm trying to figure. Yeah, I mean, Quiz introduced me to you, and he's just an awesome dude too. So you hang around very awesome people. So I know if
your
they
wife,
know you.
Tanya too.
Your wife,
Your wife Tanya.
Oh yeah.
I love hanging around with her more than anybody in the entire world.
Definitely. Your wife, it's a family atmosphere.
My wife is the hardest working woman in show business. She's the female James Brown.
Yes, she is out here slinging emails and texts and keeping us all in good communication. So, your whole team, Ben, all of them, everybody's been great.
Remember Derek Dave at the Endorse Expo? He was this young guitar player who would perform at the Endorse Expo, the one in California.
Okay.
And he had this great voice, and he would jump around and play guitar. He is now the opening act for the Motley Crue tour. Oh. He has a great band called Classless Act.
Okay.
So if you're listening to this, you have to check out Classless Act because they are going to be incredibly well known. Okay.
All right. You heard it here first. And
you can't say it like that. You've heard it here first.
See, Randy came in with the cinematic voice on it. So I also want to ask you, how do you become an endorser?
Good question. Glad you asked. Well, the first thing is, what I tell people is, instead of going for an endorsement, work on your music career. Because if you work on your music career, then the endorsements will come to you. At the same point, there needs to be some sort of fine balance. Mm-hmm. So think about not what the company can offer to you, what can you offer to the company? What do you bring to the game? You can be a great player, but do you have a great Instagram following? You started to talk about social media. Mm-hmm. Because there's value for that. If you have 57 followers, then there's no advert value for the brand. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes we'll work with someone with slow social media because we really, really believe in who they are, or we believe in their management firm. So a typical example, so find yourself a great manager too, that believes in you. So an example is, there was an artist that we worked with. Actually, we didn't work with her, we were their manager. And he brought us an artist that had, I think at the time, like 500 Instagram followers, which was not very much, low social media. But we knew that Danny we trusted Danny as a manager. So we wound up getting them a Nord endorsement. And then Phineas and Billy grew to be one of the biggest artists in the world. But they worked with somebody we trusted. So if you have a great band and a great sound, and you find yourself a manager who's working with some big artists, they have leverage. They don't wield it like a hammer. What they do is they'll work with us, and if we trust them that they assigned you, then we trust their judgment. But if you don't have a manager, just build up your socials on your own. What you need to do is tag the products you're using, whether you're an endorsee or not. Mm-hmm. So for instance, if you just did a recording in your home and you used a Lewitt microphone and you used some IK multimedia software and you used like a Gibson Les Paul guitar, and you used an OWC drive to record it with, and you had it, you used a Gator Frameworks laptop stand on there. When you're done with what you're posting, or the video portion of what you're posting, or the image, what you do is on it you say something like, hey, check out my song. I did this on my Apple laptop using an OWC Electron drive, singing through my Lewitt microphone, going through my WireWorld cable into my Les Paul guitar, using Amplitude and the Sunset Sound Studio reverb. And that's for those who want to know what I did. And eventually these brands will get to see that you've tagged them, and people want to know. They want to know what you're using to get your sound.
Exactly.
And just keep tagging, and then people get to see, and then eventually, then if you call a company and they look at your social media, if they just see like you feeding your cat, then there's no value. But if they see that, hey, you know what, this person's a real gearhead, that they love what they do. Yeah. So that will help you, and that will assist you in getting to the point where you can get an endorsement. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
And it has to be on products you like, too. It can't be on something like, hey, can you get me an endorsement?
But then you don't know what to do with it.
And it doesn't work. As an artist relations person, there's another artist relations person in the room, really good, named Daniel Keller, who's on the other side of the booth, right there. Same thing, if someone calls Daniel and says, get me an endorsement, it's not going to work. It has to be on a product that you love, that, you know, I carry, or someone like Daniel carries, or something like that. Yeah. So I just gave you a plug, Daniel.
Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. So
up together.
That's right, we did. So that's really what you want to do. If you want to get your name out there, get your product there, work on your musicianship, and promote the products that you love, whether you're an endorsee or not.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. One more.
Yeah.
What's next for artist relations?
We just started working with a company called Coinfold, KOINFOLD.com. And they're a company that's in the whole crypto world. So they're actually coming out with a wallet that will allow you to trade crypto. And I'm hoping I'm understanding this correctly because we just started with them. It will allow you to trade crypto without a transaction fee. And for any management firms that are listening to this as well, they also will have you the ability to create your own entertainment coin. So it's something that could really be incredibly, incredibly huge for the music industry. So you have to check out Coinfold.
Okay.
Will do.
All right. Well, that's what's coming up next. And thank you so much, Randy, from Artist Relations. As you just said, all the social media handles, except for the one for Artist Relation on Facebook. But everything else, you got it early, like you've been on with all your social media and stuff like that. Thank you again so much, Randy. Please check out our episodes on Apple, Spotify. We're on YouTube as well. And that's it from Summer NAMM in Nashville. Again, thank you from Randy, Dennis, and myself. Let's go.
For more information of booking 23DB Productions, visit their website at 23dbproductions.com. Like and follow 23DB Productions at Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter for the latest work.